Hi, I'm Amanda Berlin here with Don Oland. Hi, Don.
Hey Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really great.
Good. I'm excited for our second week in this series on how to have a better year together, kicking off on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you know what? It's coming right around the corner, and hopefully people have their minds already geared toward Valentine's Day. I know some people wait to the last minute and they're rushing to Fannie Mae to get some chocolates, but maybe you're a little ahead of the game. And if so, that's good because we're going to be talking a little bit about getting ahead of the game in just a little bit.
Excellent. Yeah. So I want to introduce our topic for this week. We are talking about the one single thing that you can do this year, this Valentine's Day. Start it this Valentine's Day to have a better year together. And Don, what you explained to me is the one thing that we need to do is create positive sentiment in our relationship. So what does that mean?
Yeah, positive sentiment is really an important concept to visualize. I guess the best way for me to describe it is the cloud. I'm not talking about the physical clouds in the sky. I'm talking about in the world of media and technology now, we are storing all our data in the cloud. I mean, I have a cloud with Apple, I have a cloud with Google. I have a cloud with Dropbox. I mean, I got all these clouds all over the place, and sometimes it could be overwhelming to figure out how to manage all that. But I just really want to simplify it for couples and to say, think about your relationship as a cloud where you store positive sentiment.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like this idea that, we're kind of using that cloud as our emotional memory in some ways and storing things that we want to preserve or remember in our relationship so that we can draw on them during more
Yeah,
challenging times.
yeah. And maybe what I should do too is just give a rationale for this whole idea of the positive cloud. Because if you're storing things up in this relationship cloud, in these habits we're going to talk about, what it does is it creates this general feel in the relationship that kind of says, you know what, we're good. We're doing good. We enjoy what we got going on between us. And what we do know is that when couples develop this positive sentiment, John Gottman, who's a marriage researcher, talks about this positive sentiment has this kind of overriding presence in the relationship, so that if you're experiencing conflict, you have a tendency as a couple to deal with that conflict a lot better because you enjoy so much the positive sentiment that you have. So you're more likely to
Right.
work as a team to resolve conflict than to be adversaries, like we talked about last week.
Right, right. Okay, well then let us know some of these habits we can adopt to embrace this, bring more positive sentiment into our relationship or even draw on the positive sentiment that we've stored up.
Sure. Yeah, let's begin with the word sentiment. I say for the first habit, develop these sentimental habits. And the sentimental habits are really expressions of how you feel toward each other, saying things like, hey, I love you, you matter to me, hey, you're looking great, those type of things. In fact, let me just grab this real quick. I was reading in my Flipboard magazine. I don't know if you get Flipboard or not, but it's really cool because you can read all these different periodicals from all over the place. And I
Ah,
found one, and I'm going to actually post this on my Facebook site so our subscribers can see it there. It's called 19 Gestures That Make a Woman Feel Absolutely Adored. And I won't go through all the 19. I'm just going to
oh,
just tag a few of those. Play with her hair. Kiss in public. Bring up past conversations. We're not talking about bad ones, but interesting ones that she found interesting.
right, right. It shows you're listening.
Exactly. Whisper in her ear at a party. Take care of her. Push her to follow her dreams. Things like that. That's just a few of them. There's plenty more there in those 19. But it's this whole idea of making comments, gestures, verbal and nonverbal. I mean, there's something
Right.
verbal about whispering in the ear, but there's something very nonverbal about being very, very close. Some women find that very attractive, very sentimental, very sexy, right? I think telling your wife or your husband or your partner, hey, you know what? You are sexy. I'm attracted to you. Keep the flirt active. It's those kinds of things I say that are kind of those habits of sentimentality in the relationship, and they're not
Right.
difficult.
Right, right. Sounds good. What's our
Yeah.
next tip?
So the next tip, the next habit is this whole idea of developing mindfulness. And when you're interacting with your partner or your spouse, be really mindful of what's going on in those interactions. I think so many times when people are talking today, they're talking through their devices. And you can see it. I mean, they text back and forth to each other in the most extreme cases, but I oftentimes see people in restaurants, and I've been guilty of it myself at home, where my wife will be asking me something and I'm in a device kind of multitasking, trying to listen and also do this. And that's not really showing attentiveness, right? And so I say in mindfulness, pay attention to your spouse or your partner. Look across at him or her and give them your best attention. And then also with mindfulness, pay attention to how you're coming across to each other. I worked with a couple this week and they were talking about some significant issue in the relationship. And I said, what I want you to do is to really pay attention to your tone of interaction. Your content may be good, but if your tone is off, your partner's not going to get the content because they're going to be
Right.
reacting to your tone. So mindfulness also includes paying attention to how you're coming across, and also kind of getting back to what we talked to last week when we said, hey, what is one thing I can do better for you? Maybe your spouse or your partner said, hey, I would like you to do this more when we communicate. So pay attention to that aspect of communication you promised to work on. So be mindful of that when you're interacting.
Right. It's interesting to me because it brings up, and this may be a bit of a tangent, but sometimes it occurs to me that it's easier to have challenging conversations when you do not necessarily have your phone out in front of you or, or are sitting there on your computer, but when you're sitting side by side in the car and you don't have to necessarily face the person in this very intense situation where you're kind of like both looking ahead. And I've even had difficult conversations where, the TV is on and we are kind of both staring into our computers almost to break that tension. What do you make of that?
Yeah, what I would say is that's kind of reflective of the degree of, let's say, closeness in the relationship. Let's say the relationship is fraught with some conflict or some emotional distancing because you're just off track. You're out of sync. You're off the rails, as I would say. So when couples start to get to talk about things, having something there as maybe a filter or some kind of object to focus on makes it a little easier to have the conversation. And so that's a little bit like we talk about, when couples are in that place, their faces are kind of this way with each other in terms of this is how the relationship's going. But as you're building positive sentiment, the idea, as Gottman would say, is to turn toward each other. So the goal
Uh-huh.
ultimately with these habits is really to get you to be able to look each other in the eye and feel comfortable with each other. And that's why it's so important to be mindful. How do I come across to my partner? Do
Right.
I come across being rigid and angry or mistrusting or suspicious? Or do I come across to them being curious and open and respectful?
Right.
That thing. So couples who are in a rough place will have a tendency, yeah, to talk through things. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to keep that going. The goal is eventually to turn toward each other. So these little habits actually start turning you toward each other, where those
Okay.
conversations become easier.
I like that. I like that metaphor because it is precisely, physically what you're doing as well. You're kind of not really facing each other, and it's hard to look the person in the eye, but then gradually you work through that and can face each other.
You can, and I think the ultimate is when you two can look at each other and you feel the warmth, the fondness, the respect of that person, and you're also giving them the same. So it feels
Right.
really safe between the two of you. And
Right.
that's ultimately where couples want to be, right? It's sometimes just hard to get there.
Right. Yeah. So the second tip or the second habit that you're referring us to is really being mindful of how you interact
Yeah,
when you interact
yeah,
and being present for the conversation.
exactly, exactly. So the third tip then I'd like to get into is what I call starting the day and ending the day well. We have the starts of the day, we have the end of the day, and sometimes we have the arrival. So let's say you start the day and you both go off to work or wherever, and then you have this. So you have the departure, then you have the arrival back home, and then you have the end of the day. Um, I'll just start with the beginning and the end of the day. We can address the arrival part later on, but think about when you start the day to try to develop this habit of starting off on a good foot. And maybe instead of jumping out of the bed and rushing into the shower and getting out the door, maybe you try to get up 5 minutes or so a little earlier. You wake up and start the day together in bed, just greeting each other, welcoming each other, maybe cuddling a little bit before the day starts. What's your day going to be like today? And kind of talk about that a little bit, and just be there with each other in kind of a positive way to start the day. And that sets a good tone of interaction because you get out of bed feeling pretty good. We got each
Mhm.
other's back. We're going into the world to do what we need to do. And I think that also can perpetuate these other kinds of things like phone calls or texting emojis, things like that keep us connected in our worlds with each other, even though we're busy in these other kinds of worlds.
Right.
And then when it comes to the end of the day, if you can maybe develop the habit, if at all possible, of going to bed together, that really helps. And then ending the day with maybe some kind of word of appreciation. Hey, I appreciated that you did this for me today, or I really liked how you handled this. You did a remarkable job with our daughter when she was having a tantrum by not reacting to her and remaining calm and getting her to identify her feelings. Hey, you did a great job of pitching in with the dishes while I was handling that situation. It really felt like we were a team. Anything where at the end of the day you can pay a compliment, reflect well together, it helps you kind of go to bed with less anxiety and stress and just kind of feeling like, hey, we weren't perfect, but we got through the day. We got through the day together. We started well, we ended well together. So
Yeah.
trying to practice those things and getting them going can really work well for you overall.
Yeah, and I like that because it also sounds like you're stepping into this the whole purpose of being in a relationship, which is to have someone on your team. So
Yes,
you're really taking advantage of that throughout the day and setting the stage for that starting in the morning.
you're so right. 'Cause I hear this from couples all the time. We want to function as a team. We find it a struggle sometimes to do that. And that's why they often will come and see me because I can counsel and coach them depending on, what's interfering with that process. Sometimes it's a little coaching with some tips. Other times it's some counseling getting at some core issues that make it hard for them to do that. But either way, I think most couples I talk to want to function as teammates in
Right.
whatever aspect of life they're doing, but also being a team as being a couple too, not just parents, not just people own a house, not just that, but really in the relationship too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the habit of setting the stage in the morning and in the evening,
Yeah,
beginning and ending the day together.
beginning and ending the day together. And then let's talk about like in the grind of the day, right? Because there's so many expectations and there's roles and there's responsibilities and there's a lot happening. That's why couples very shortly into married life or in relationship shift from being kind of lovers and companions to being partners in parenting or partners in tasks. The relationship takes on a strong task orientation to it. So yeah, we do have to be mindful of those type of things. So I say develop the habit of doing things for each other without being asked. Now, one of my favorite movies, which may surprise some people because I'm not a huge fan of British film. My wife is a huge British film fan, and she occasionally will get me to watch things with her. And some things I enjoy, most things it's just not my taste. But one of my favorite movies is Gosford Park. I don't know if you've seen
Mm-hmm.
Gosford Park or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great movie, and the great actress Helen Mirren is in that, and she plays the head. I think I don't know what her title is, but she's the head of all the maids who work at this big, marvelous castle, where these elite people are there for a summer vacation. And one of the younger maids who are there are asking her, like, how does she know all these things? And she said, you have to understand what sets me apart from everyone else. And she says, it is the gift of anticipation. I know what these family members need before they do. And there is
Right.
something about being able to anticipate the needs of a spouse. Wayne Gretzky
Mhm.
was asked what made him so great. He said, I kind of have a sense of anticipating where the puck is going to be, and I just go to that spot. So you're thinking ahead, you're anticipating. And I think if we study each other enough, we ask good questions like, what do you need from me? What can I do to make your life better? What can I do to change? What are your needs? We become students of each other. Then we develop this gift or this habit of anticipation, and then we can simply act on it. And then we find ourselves doing things without being asked.
Right.
Saw the movie The Breakup. That was Jennifer Aniston's big problem with Vince Vaughn is, he always needed to be told over and over and over. And she said, I want you to think about these things and do them without me having to ask you. And he was kind of puzzled by that whole idea, but she's got a good point. We feel
Right.
cared for when our partner anticipates our needs and acts on them ahead of time. If I hear this over and over again, and being in a relationship, I know it's true for myself. I can say it's true for my wife, that you really feel cared for when your partner is doing something without you asking them because they know it's what you like.
Yeah. That movie was so hard to watch because it really felt so authentic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Why would I want to do the dishes, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, right. And everyone likes to feel recognized and known and seen. And, when I guess you kind of give your partner that gift of being known and seen when you anticipate their needs,
Yes.
and they recognize that you have observed and taken in that information.
Yes, exactly. We are no different than infants. Infants have basic needs, right? And they're crying out for them. But as the parent anticipates those and meets those, that infant feels cared for. It feels safe.
Right.
It feels loved. It feels like it's a sense of belonging. We're no different as adults. We still need to have a sense from our partner or spouse that we matter. And that comes across when we develop these mindfulness habits of anticipation in doing things without being asked.
Yeah, great. Yep. And it also, I think, perpetuates that team environment
Yep.
because you're supporting when it just reminds me of kind of like the football analogy where everyone serves a purpose, and some of them some of the time you're just blocking to prevent injury or something like that, but you're needed
Yeah.
and you're doing good for the other person.
Exactly. Exactly. You're hitting a spot so they can hit a gap and get across and achieve their goal. Absolutely.
Right. In anticipation of the Super Bowl here.
Now the fifth is one I find to be really dynamic in a relationship. Um, in talking to women and reading a lot of articles, one of the common things I hear that attracts a female to a male is a guy who can make her laugh. I just find this interesting that so many women say this. What attracted you to him? Oh, he just made me laugh. And I think laughter and humor and fun, as long as it's respectful and not hurtful, is such a great habit to build into relationship, to build this positive sentiment in your cloud. So, funny stories, laughing at your own mistakes. I remember my wife and I played Scrabble one day, and she went first, and her first word she spelled was Yeti, Yeti. And I go, there's no such word as Yeti. And she goes, yes, it is. I go, no, it's not. And she goes, yes, it is. And I go, well, what's a Yeti? And she goes, it's the abominable snowman. To which I bust out laughing, saying, oh, yeah, right. She gets out of the bed, goes into the next room in the library, comes out with this massive volume. She's got this 2 volumes dictionary because she's really into words. And she opens up to Y, plops it down, points her finger, and says, "Read that." And I looked at it, and it said, "Synonym for the abominable snowman." At which point, I mean, laughter just broke out like crazy. I mean, we're split. God, I could hardly finish the game. I think I still won, but we just cracked
Of
up and
course you did.
cracked up and cracked up. So it's things like that.
Yeah,
The
and
other
that takes a
day,
lot. It takes a lot of humility too to be able to laugh at things like that. And I think that that's hugely important in a relationship is not taking yourself too seriously. I think.
you can. I mean, we were coming home from church the other day, and I was driving, and I forget what I had said, and she just says to me, "Stinker," like that, and I just look over, and we just both bust out laughing. She doesn't call me that; it just kind of came out, and we just bust out laughing, and like for 5 minutes, and then it's like, this is what's good about a relationship. You make each other laugh. You do silly things. You watch a YouTube. You watch a comedy. You go whatever it is. I think you understand where I'm getting at. So
Sure.
habit of humor really does build positive sentiment. It 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 also helps to offset all the serious stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, life is too serious. We're in tasks. We got all this pressure we put on ourselves or others put on us. But if we have our partner who can make us laugh and we can make them laugh, it's like it's us against the world and we're okay. We can laugh at them.
Yeah. Mhm. One of the things that my husband and I laugh about is this video on YouTube that I recommend everyone look up if you want a cute little laugh. It's called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And it's
I'm gonna have to
voiced
look
by
that.
Jenny Slate, who's a comedian,
Uh
and her husband made the animation.
huh.
And there's this one line where it's this little shell with like a little teeny shell, and that's the figure, and he has shoes on and he gets scared by the dog and he runs and hides in the couch, and then the next scene you see him kind of like hiding under the couch, and the shell goes, "Is he there? Is he there?" Meaning the dog. And then he goes, "I could smell his face." And we just use that expression for everything. Like, "Oh, I smell his face." Like I sense he's there.
That's
But
good.
yeah, that's a good one. And I've shown that to so many people. It always gets a good
Send me that link.
laugh.
Send me that link and I'll send it to our subscribers so that they
Yeah,
can check
absolutely.
that one out. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is those little things that you can share. And I really like the fact that you brought up that it could be from a YouTube video or a movie comedy or something, because we don't need to create all of these points of connection ourselves. We can create them ourselves with the aid of entertainment or, something that we both enjoy.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so I think if you really try to practice those 5 habits, the end game is what we talked about in the beginning, and that is the relationship starts building this positive sentiment. And when you start getting that positive sentiment in, it starts taking on this energy for the relationship. And it's not that you don't have any problems anymore. It just seems like you're so much better at dealing with them because that cloud, I think it it just epitomized the respect that's just in this relationship. You respect the relationship. You're caring for
Right.
each other. You're doing things together on a mutual basis to make it healthy, to make it positive, and that's going to give you so many great benefits.
Yeah, and when you think of that cloud metaphor, it is really like you're storing up, you're taking effort, you're putting effort toward protecting the relationship and, building a foundation for it. And, when you think about the things that you put in the cloud technology, in the technological cloud, it's things that you want to keep and preserve and you want to have access to no matter where you are.
Exactly.
So I think it works in a lot of different ways, this metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there you go. Five.
Excellent. So we're going to be sentimental. We're going to be mindful when we have our conversations.
Mhm.
We're going to be dedicated to starting and ending the day together. We're going to develop the habit of doing things for each other without being asked, anticipate our partner's needs and observe them and understand what they need. And we're going to develop the habit of making each other laugh.
Yes, yes, exactly. And just to remind our viewers that, for the month of February, since it is, Valentine's Days is in a few weeks, I guess. And it's a month where we really start to think more about this. I'm going to keep that offer open for a half-hour session with you and your partner online with me, where I can coach you through some of these things. So for the month of February,
Great.
offer open for $50 for that half-hour session. So, and they,
Fabulous.
yeah, and they can just go ahead and contact me at donolan.com. Go to the contact section, I should say, and there's a little form to fill out, and it comes directly to my email. I'll contact you and we'll set things up.
Fabulous. That's donolan.com for that free, not sorry, not free, $50 drastically reduced rate half hour session.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Fabulous. Such a great opportunity. Well, thank you, Don. And I look forward to many more happy and healthy Valentine's days filled with love and laughter.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we look forward, Amanda and I look forward to doing more of these with you this coming year. So you're going to be hearing more about that from us. We hope you like this and give us some feedback and comments so that we can we know we're doing a good job for you. We can always value your feedback for improvement as well. Thanks so much for that.
Excellent. Yep. Tell us in the comments below what you'd like to hear about and what you liked about this episode.
All right. Well, you have a great day, Amanda.
You too, Don. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.